listening to episode 29 of the Wheeler's Dog Podcast. I'm Eugene B. Sims, and again, thank you for tuning in to the Wheeler's Dog Podcast. I really do appreciate it. And if you haven't noticed, there's one major sport back. It's probably my favorite sport. You know, I grew up as a Washington Redskins fan. I grew up as a Cincinnati Reds fan. I learned how to score baseball games, which I couldn't do now if you put a gun to my head. But I learned to score baseball games watching the 1975 World Series. My dad was a Reds fan, so I was a Reds fan. Yeah, Cincinnati Reds, Big Red Machine. It's funny, I can rattle off some of the players' names that played on part of the Big Red Machine, but if you asked me to name that many players of the Washington Redskins, I couldn't do it. No. But anyway, baseball, I really liked. I got a love for the Cleveland Indians there for a while. You know, because I tend to pull for underdogs. I really like underdogs. There's a satisfaction that you can only get when an underdog wins. So I guess that's maybe why I pull for them so much. I'm not sure. And then also growing up, as I said, Washington Redskins fan. As soon as I popped out of the womb, I was handed a Redskins t-shirt and a Redskins hat. And a pennant was placed in my hand to wave around. I think one of the first songs that I ever had to learn was Hail to the Redskins. But, you know, it's a family thing. I'm keeping the tradition alive. For some reason, Chigs decided to try to get into football. Now, here's the thing. I only watch now the team that I like. Baseball, I gave up during the strike in the 90s. I'm just like, I don't care. They're pricing the fans out of the game now. And so I gave up baseball. Yeah. And plus, you know, I must say this. I do like going to the ballpark and watching games, you know, in person. But the thing that drives me crazy about the minor league stuff, they have to constantly have stuff going on. For me, it's always been, something you do socially. You know, you can hang out with your friends, have a few beers, crack open some peanuts, talk junk with your buddies, have some fun, poke fun at other people around you. Yeah, that was kind of fun. And heckle the ball players. That was always a favorite of mine to do. But, you know, now with the minor league stuff, it's all noises constantly between pitches, between innings. There's games and contests going on. And even like in Winston-Salem, the Dash, they've got like playground out in center field. It's like, okay, I just don't go anymore. It's not fun. You know, it's not baseball. And I like watching baseball. I don't like watching it so much on TV, you know, because it eats up so much time when you've got other things to watch or possibly other things to do. Football, as I said, when I was growing up, I was always watching football all day on Sunday. You know, 2 games on Sunday, then you had Monday Night Football. And I'd watch, it didn't matter who was playing, I was watching. I might watch MASH, tune over there for a little bit to find out, you know, if it's a good episode. And, you know, before Charles Winchester, most of them were really great episodes. But, you know, I was a fan. I kept up. I watched the pregame shows, everything. But as I've gotten older, and again, there's more things to watch. And then when the Panthers came along, it used to be a time where the affiliates could choose what games that they want to show. That's not the case anymore. So, seeing the Redskins, especially here in North Carolina, it used to be not a problem. As a matter of fact, the one of the owners of Channel 2, WFMY, back in the 70s, huge Redskins fan. Every game that was on the CBS network, we were watching Redskins. We had it made. They tried to introduce the Atlanta Falcons to us to try to split up the region, but no, we wanted no part of that. So I got accustomed to seeing Redskins games all the time. Well, that's changed over the years. And then the Carolina Panthers came along, and, I've held such a grudge against the Panthers because, they took away our TV time. Well, that's not the deal. The affiliates don't get a choice anymore, so I'm wrong for hating them as much as I do, but I do, And my wife has decided to climb on board this football train. And, again, the only time I watch is if there happens to be a Redskins game on in the Triad market of North Carolina. Otherwise, I don't watch any football. I won't watch a game all day on Sunday. Won't watch a Monday night. Won't watch a Thursday. It has to be a Redskins game because I just don't want to dedicate all the time to watching something that I don't really love, Not anymore. Dan Snyder is kind of, the owner of the Washington Redskins. He's kind of killed my love for football. So I don't care. I don't care. Not anymore. I've been to FedEx Field. I actually saw a Redskins Dallas game. It was a big thrill for me to see, even though we lost, it was a big thrill to see such a rivalry. And there were more Cowboy fans in the stands than there were Redskins. Does that tell you something? Huh? Right there. But I've seen several games in the old RFK Stadium. That was a big thrill. And yes, that stadium really rocks. I mean, literally rocks. You can feel it move under you. When the crowd gets into it, it's you can feel it. It's very, very wild. I'm glad I got to experience that. And so my wife has decided to, I tried to get her onto the Panthers. I said, look, you should go for the Panthers. I know I don't like them, but you should pull for the Panthers. They're right here. They're the home team. You get every game all the time. You get to see the Panthers. You get news on the Panthers. We could drive down to Charlotte, see a Panthers game. Not a problem. But no, she wanted to stand by her man, so to speak, and join me in the misery known as being a Redskins fan. So, yeah, she watches here and there, but she doesn't really get into it. She doesn't quite understand it all, so I'm just kind of teaching her as I go along, what they're doing, why they're doing it, that sort of thing. And NASCAR is really, I do watch hockey, but not until it's like playoff season. I know that's terrible. I've got a North Carolina license plate, Hurricanes license plate. I've got a Hurricane flags that I fly outside of the house all the time. I wear Hurricanes paraphernalia, hats, hoodies, t-shirts, but I don't really watch the game because, again, it takes up too much time. I check the highlights, I check the scores, and that's about it. And then playoff time, that's when I'm watching hockey. I love it. But NASCAR is the sport that really, really speaks to me. I really love NASCAR. I don't like some of the things that they've done here in the past 2 decades, but, hopefully they're learning from it because the fans have kind of gone away. They've forgotten their roots. But anyway, the thing is with NASCAR, I don't watch the cookie cutters so much. I'm talking about places like Kentucky, Kansas, Michigan, which is, been on the track or the schedule forever. I don't care for Las Vegas. I don't care for California. God, what a boring race there. And that's the thing. Most of them are boring because you kind of tune in, week out. It's the same damn race, basically. The same people up front. Yeah. And besides the short tracks, which is there's beating and banging and rubbing is racing. But one of the things that I absolutely love is the road course races. I wish there were more of them. Love them. As a matter of fact, when I moved down here in Clemens, my father-in-law just right down the street. My good buddy Vate just right over there, across the street from us, up a little bit. They didn't understand the road course races, and I got them hooked. I showed them. It's beating and banging. It's lefts. It's rights. It's changes in elevation. It's crazy. And so, here's the thing. I mean, I've talked to Mark Garrow. I've worked with him a few times at WSJS. And Mark Garrow, if you don't know, he's on the, I want to say, Performance Racing Network, I think, PRM. And he's a analyst, broadcaster there. And he's several times sat in, because he lives just over across from us in Midway. Interesting guy. But, he and I have talked about it. He hated road courses. I didn't quite understand it. I was like, how much back to basics NASCAR can you get? I mean, if you didn't know, NASCAR was kind of born out of bootlegging, moonshine business, because people would tear down their cars, their stock cars, strip them out so they could carry as much booze as they possibly could, and they'd soup up these cars so they could outrun the law. And when they were outrunning the law, do you think they went around in circles? No. They were turning left. They were turning right. They were changing elevations, going down, going up, going sideways, slideways. And that's what I love about the road course races. But NASCAR is the first big-time sport to make a comeback. They're doing it without fans. If you haven't noticed, they're doing it. There's no fans in the stands. And some could argue there haven't really been fans in the stands the past couple of years. But what they've done is, since most of the teams are centered in Charlotte, what they've done, they decided to have 2 races in Darlington. One on a Sunday and one on a Wednesday. And I'm talking about the upper tier, the Cup Series. And then, just yesterday, Memorial Day Sunday, I'm recording this on Monday, they had the Coke 600, the World 600, Memorial Day weekend as always. So that went on. It was an interesting race. Again, Charlotte used to be great because it was the one-of-a-kind track. It was awesome. I've been to Charlotte, I can't tell you how many times. As a matter of fact, I've been to Charlotte the first time they ran a race under the lights that Jeff Gordon won. That was his first win, so I was there. I was also there for Bobby Labonte, a Cup champion. I was there for his first win at Charlotte. I've seen Dick Trickle race there, and that's what really got me into NASCAR. A guy by the name of Dick Trickle. I never understood. I used to pick on my father all the time. I was like, I don't know what you get out of watching these yahoos drive 500 miles in a circle. What do you get out of it? And he's like, boy, you don't understand. And I didn't. I used to attend the dirt track races with him, and I loved it. It was awesome. But watching them go around in circles didn't really appeal to me, on the asphalt. Dirt was a different thing. It was kind of like it was dangerous. Plus, it's guys out in Madison, 311 Speedway, the Daytona of dirt. Guys that, professional drivers, not really, but, they were getting out there doing it. And it was crazy. I've seen some crazy stuff out there. Seen some crazy stuff at Bowman Gray Stadium racing. But I was at my parents' house doing laundry one time. I didn't have a washer and dryer. So I was over there one Sunday afternoon hanging out with them. And then it went to the news, and they were talking about who finished the race where, and they gave the top 5. And they were saying their names. And I wasn't really paying attention. And then the guy said, Dick Trickle. I'm like, what? What? And I looked up at the TV. I said, what? There's a guy named Dick Trickle in NASCAR? And they're like, yeah. I was like, well, it sounds like a venereal disease. What's going on here? How did this guy get in with that kind of name? But for some reason, it spoke to me. I had to pull for a guy named Dick Trickle. So I started keeping up with it in the newspaper, seeing where he would finish, seeing where he would qualify. I didn't watch the races at the time, but, I got into it because of Dick Trickle. Because, you got to pull for a guy named Dick Trickle. Turns out that he holds a NASCAR record. Never a win in the Cup Series, 2 in the Xfinity Series, but no Cup wins. Turns out he holds a NASCAR record, and it will probably never, ever be broken. He is the oldest Rookie of the Year. That's right. His rookie year, he was 49 years old, and he won the Rookie of the Year championship. So, guy was an interesting dude. I got to meet him one time. The weird thing is, when he committed suicide, I was at Bowman Gray Stadium doing interviews with drivers from the K&N series and from the racetrack there. And you could hear the news just spread like wildfire through the pits. I got it in my ear first because the guy at the radio station told me about it, because it was a news radio station at the time. So I heard it, and it was my favorite driver, and I'm like, damn. But you gotta, I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going on like there's nothing, sad about it. I've gotta keep, being upbeat and interviewing these guys. But it was kind of interesting to be there in the garage in the pits and hearing the news spread. It was really kind of cool. But anyway, my father went to some guy's house who was broken into. Turned out to be a buddy of mine, a guy named Wally. He and I got to talking because he came over and saw that Wally had so many record albums, and he was like, hey, you probably know my son. He works over at Peaches. And of course, that's how we met. Wally came in, said hello to me. And then I noticed he was wearing some sort of racing paraphernalia. I can't remember what it was. So I started talking to him, and he was like, hey, why don't you go to a race with me sometime? Damn if we didn't. We went to North Wilkesboro. That was my first race. That was Richard Petty's farewell tour. Davey Allison won the race that day. Dick Trickle, I think he had a top 10 finish. I can't remember. But it was very interesting. So that was my first race. And I'm glad to see it back. I like all the interesting things that they're doing. Racing on Sunday and then racing on Wednesday. They're going to race again this coming Wednesday. So there's no qualifying. They did for the 600. But now, this Wednesday night, what they're going to do, they're going to line up the top 20 in order that they finished, but they're going to invert them. So the winner, Brad Keselowski, is going to start 20th, while the 20th place driver is going to start first. So that should be interesting. I was hoping they would break out the Roval, but, oh well, they're not going to. That's a road course, by the way, Roval. It's part of the Speedway, and it's inside the Speedway, and it's really cool. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on so much about NASCAR. I just love what they're doing with it. I'm hearing rumblings that the NHL is going to resume their season. And the other thing that kills me is my favorite driver now. Again, I've always liked underdogs. My favorite driver these days is the guy, Clint Bowyer, number 14. He's always been on the back burner for me. I tend to go with road course race drivers like Juan Pablo Montoya, AJ Allmendinger, Robbie Gordon. I like the underdogs. And so Boyer's having a hard season, had a hard couple of seasons. I think I'm to blame because I put all of my fandom behind him.
You want extra episodes of the Wheeler's Dog Podcast? Of course you do. No one in their right mind would pass up an opportunity to get a bonus episode every week. Not every once in a while, but one every week. Just go to patreon.com/WheelersDog and get into the dog's chair for just $4. $4 every month unlocks all the audio. You can even listen with the Patreon app for tablets and smartphones. Patreon.com/WheelersDog to contribute. It's the best gift that you could ever give yourself, really. Maybe.
And we're still trying to get the pool open here at the big house. It's not happening. There's like rain in the forecast every day. So again, today, I put the sump pump in the pool to pump off water off the tarp. I've got the water off the top as much as it's going to, or the tarp, as much as it's going to come off, with the sump pump. But I need some sunshine. It's Memorial Day, and there's no sun whatsoever. It's kind of muggy outside, no sun, so I can't get the sun to help evaporate the water off, because I would have taken the pool cover off today, this afternoon. I would have done it. So I'm taking it day by day. I've got our neighbors. Thankfully, they're willing to help, and so they're ready at a moment's notice to come help me open the pool. And again, just rain on the tarp all the time. It's killing me. So we've been expecting rain all day. It hasn't. We're expecting rain tonight. Who knows if it'll do it? I don't know. But I'm getting kind of sick of it. I know the wife, she's on furlough this week. She'd love to be floating around the pool, sipping on beer. But it ain't happening. I just hate it for her. Just hate it for her. But, we got to do what we got to do. And, there's water on the tarp. I'm pulling that off. And then I'm pumping water under the tarp to raise it up. So it won't take as long to fill up. Because what you got to do is when you close it, you want to drop that water down at least 18 inches so it won't freeze. And then you want it underneath the skimmers so it won't get in the pipes, so that won't freeze. So there you go. And the other thing is, I really don't want to open it up with the rain, because once you dump all that money, and I'm talking about chemicals, into the pool, rain could really mess it up, especially if it's an acid rain. That is no fun in the pool. So, you got to massage that. Now, I do have testing strips. I test every week. Practically every 2 days is when I'm testing it, to stay on top of it, because it can get out of shape real quick. But if you are strict about checking it, always checking it, it's hard for it to go wrong, because you take a sample to the pool lady. She gives it the taste test. No, really, she just kind of pokes it in some sort of chemical things, containers, and then puts them in the thing, and I guess it reads it by light. I don't know what it does, but I've looked into getting one of those machines, and they cost like $1,000, and I was like, okay, I don't need one of those. I'll just continue to let her do that for free. And I always love the fact whenever I get she does the reading, and she's like, oh, you're perfect. You're absolutely perfect. And then it's usually something like this, add some sodium bicarbonate to it. Add a little alkalinity to it, that sort of thing. So I always love to hear that. But whenever I'm getting, algae on the side, that's not good. So anyway, it's not bad. It's not hard to take care of. And thank God we've got a robotic cleaner by the name of Sharky. Yeah, it's kind of like a Roomba for pools. You know what I mean? It's made by Hayward, which, here's the weird deal. That pool company, Hayward, they make all kinds of things for pools, from pumps to robotic cleaners, everything. They're just right down the road here in Clemens. That's where they've got this big factory and stuff. So it's really kind of cool. I'm supporting my friends and neighbors that work there. I've got a friend named Lisa. I got a friend named Randy. Both of them work there. We're working on it, trying to get that thing open. If we just get a little sunshine to evaporate the water off the top of it, I'm ready to flip the switch and say hello to high power bills.
Eating Winston-Salem, one restaurant at a time. The Man Who Ate the Town podcast is available everywhere you find podcasts and at tldpodnetwork.com. Now that's delicious.
I'd like to thank associate producer Tim Beeman of the Less Desirables Network. He's the guy that gets these all out to the wherever you find podcasts. He's the reason why you find the podcast. So again, thanks to associate producer Tim Beeman. Also, he does the thing with the YouTube for me. I do appreciate that, because there are people that watch it. Not too many, but a few. And so again, no one's really calling the Wheeler's Dog Speak line. Again, if you haven't done it, feel free to do it. 336-422-6006. You can leave your gripes. You could give advice. You could drop some knowledge on all of us. or if you hear something in a podcast that you disagree with or maybe agree with and you've got a point to make, by all means, call the Wheeler's Dog Speak Line, 336-422-6006. No one's going to answer. No one's going to pick up. And you might hear your call here on the Wheeler's Dog Podcast. Again, thanks to everybody. And again, thanks to Chigs for cutting that Patreon drive spot. So I do appreciate that as well. And folks, I am getting on out of here. You can feel it.